Because he will not be asking you this question.
Now, we are going to take that very, very small. The only one we need to involve in network and me involved in television.
Morning, officers. Are there ladies here? No? This is not to say that there is a dearth of ladies here. We have plenty of them in the ministry. But believe me, they are all involved in other things. I would like to apologize most sincerely for starting this demo late. We were supposed to have started at 11, but there were also other meetings that had been programmed before now, and quite honestly I started the meeting and I left them to come to this one because it's also very important that we understand what we are going to do here. This is a very, very vital aspect of our security system. That is why we have taken the trouble to invite the services. We've also taken the trouble to invite members of the ministry. Some of them are involved in one meeting or the other, but when they come in, they will join us. For now, actually, we will start so that we don't keep you waiting longer than necessary. So please accept my apologies, and please, I thank you also for coming. I believe that at the end of this demonstration, you will go away feeling that it has been well worth it. Thank you. Now, I'm going to very quickly tell you what this is all about, and then we will introduce the people who are going to show us what they are capable of doing, in the hope that at the end of it all, you'll be able to go back to your various services and you'll be able to sell this system to your services. Because if you tell us you need these services, then we'll be able to fight for you to ensure that these services are provided. Well, the name of the company is Travis Telecommunications Limited. I believe they are based in the United States of America. And the chief executive of the company is Dr. Effiong Ibok. He is here in person. Telecommunications system based in the United States, and what it also has an office here in Nigeria. What we are going to be witnessing today will be a demonstration of what it is going to take to secure your systems. It's going to be a protection communication system, secure communications. We are going to be looking at video security surveillance. I think my voice is there. We are going to be looking at also remote monitoring operations and a lot of other things. I don't pretend that I'm going to do the work of Dr. Ibok for him. I'm also here to be convinced by him, so I do hope he will do a good job. But believe me, I have listened to him and I know how very passionate he is about the system, so I believe he is going to convince you. With that few words of mine, I'm going to call on Dr. Effiong Ibok, the Chief Executive of Travis Telecommunications Limited, to please come on and tell us what he has to sell to us. Thank you.
One is video surveillance. Now, technology has changed in the quite recent past, and it's not a work. Basically, what we have is the ability to monitor or to observe what goes on at the smallest barracks in the most remote places in the country from Abuja. or from any place for that matter. And that's one. Briefly. Then there are various applications of this that will also come up in the discussion. Another thing we'll be talking about, three major things we're talking about. Another is area of force protection. Those in the military are quite familiar, I'm sure, with what force protection is, but in this case, it's not flak jackets, it's not bulletproof vests, it's telecommunications, video, the ability to monitor your soldiers, and by extension, the ability to also monitor the people you are chartered to protect, even when they're not in your line of sight, even when they are over the horizon. Then the third area we'll talk about is how to secure your line of communication. I'm sure then again that you're very much aware of this. But the safety of the country relies very much on its communication capability, and how well you secure them from other entities finding out what you're doing dictates exactly how much you're going to be able to execute your duty to protect the country. So those are the three major areas, and I think I should move over there. I think I should start with some brief outline of what we're going to talk about. Some of you have a copy of the presentation, but I will not go through all. I'll try to make this as brief as possible and hit the essential points. As I mentioned before, major topics are surveillance, communications protection, and last but not the least, the ability to secure the communication system, whether it be the computer systems or the networks. Because without the ability to secure your networks or the computer systems, it's very vulnerable. The whole communication system goes down. We'll also talk about the applications of these technologies. And I don't care about the deployment strategy. This is a very elaborate and integrated system. I don't plan to suggest that we deploy all of this at once. Actually. But we'll discuss how you face this, because I know we have to face it. At the back of the presentation, we will have supplementary information which I'm going to intend to go into. I couldn't resist just putting this quote out there, which is the ability to see determines the ability to capture or protect. And so it's your responsibility to protect, and sometimes to apprehend. But you cannot apprehend or protect what you cannot see. What we'll talk about today is how you get the capability of seeing everything that's of interest to you, everywhere, in time, to avoid any catastrophe, and all the time. I discussed this at the onset of this presentation. Essentially, primary responsibility of any country is to protect itself. That's why we have the military. And also, its ability to execute these responsibilities is driven by its information acquisition capability. There's information out there. How do I get it? If somebody's planning something, how do I get it? How do I protect? Today, we show you the system for being able to do that. And the backbone of the electronic information acquisition, which is basically the essential point of this, is the communication infrastructure. I don't know. I think Right now, you still have dial-up system in your network. Hope to go to broadband or slow, but it's not here. And I don't think you have broadband between here, just as an example, between here, Abuja, and time video in Lagos or Sokoto. If somebody else can access your system and do something. So I'll discuss briefly the infrastructure and then the applications, which is the proposals that we had at the end. Ability to see. When I mean see, I mean by video surveillance, actually see something that's thousands of kilometers away. Depends extensively on the high-speed telecommunication system you have in place. And we assume at the end of the day that you will have an integrated system between here, Ministry of Defense, and the Defense Headquarters at the least. And from there to the battalions, wherever they may be. The essential aspects of surveillance is cameras, which is your eyes, basically. Connectivity, the ability to link one remote camera to the other observation area. Monitoring and recording. It's very important to record what you see. So, our system basically comprises 5 sectors, as you see. So, a network of IP cameras, sensors. Sensors is a very broad area. There are different kinds of sensors, but they're all basically data. They transmit data. So, whether it picks up smoke, whether it picks up pressure, whether it picks up whatever it is, it's meant to pick up. Vapors, gases that come out of spent shells or almost spent shells, they're all picked up by sensors. And of course, intrusion, all sensors. A wireless network. Since we do not have an elaborate fiber optic network, backbone system, I think I just heard this week that Globalcom is laying its own fiber. That probably is the first reliable system. It's just going from Lagos to Maiduguri and then to Sokoto. But unfortunately, I also heard that the way they laid it, you just dig the ground and put it in, as we discussed last night. Not a very good thing to do. So on the whole, you have to fall back on your own wireless, your own secure system that you can rely on. You use the public system as much as it's available, but you also have to use your own system. We will talk about ways of integrating all this into one reliable network. Remote monitoring and video feed. Basically, you need to be able to sit here, whether in Abuja, by default, or Lagos, or Rio, or wherever it is that you want to set up your operation center and see whatever it is you want to see that's in the system. That's the subject of the video, of the surveillance system. Or to sit here at your desk, at your post, and observe some personality that it is your responsibility to protect. See where he is, where he's going, is anything wrong in the car, how is his health? That's what monitoring is very important for that. And finally, a secure and robust network security system. Believe it or not, there is an agency of the government, of the Nigerian government, as a part of NIPI, that is supposed to study Not just cybercrime, but cyber security. It is there. A friend of mine is part of that work here in Abuja. So it's a very important thing to talk about. As a diversion, very brief diversion you should mention. Part of this work, of course, is since there are no intelligence people here, I should not go, might not discuss. But the government, people want to know what's going over your internet. And the initial reaction was to bring foreign companies, Barings, which is based in the US, to give instructions on what to do. How do we track internet traffic? The guy came to me and said, two things. You do not, I feel very uncomfortable having a foreign company monitor your traffic for you. You're not secure. So what we came up with, which I like very much, was very simple technology. Put a T at the telephone, local office, telephone, or the IP, internet provider. And this T directs all the traffic to a server and is completely under your control. That's it. That's an instruction. Let's go. This is how the system works. Cameras. They don't look much like cameras. So when I mention cameras, there's tendency to think that they are actually cameras. They look different. This PTZ here is pan, tilt, zoom. Pan, right? Tilt. So it should be like 300 something degrees in 1 second. Pan, another 300 something degrees in less than a second. Zoom, the ability to see 3 miles away, pulling the object at you. These are fixed cameras. They're not quite exciting, but they're also very good. They can resolve a person's face from 4 miles out. This is the network, and usually, ideally, we set it up as an IP, Internet Protocol based. What that DHQ is, wherever you are, if it is your responsibility within the proper clearance that you will have to give. You decide who gets the clearance. Wherever you may be on course somewhere in England, and it is your responsibility to monitor something. You log onto your computer, go through all the system clearance you need to go through, passwords and so on. Bingo, you're in. Same as if you're here in Nigeria. Okay. I will go into all these cyber security systems. The government chartered some people to develop a GIS map for the country. Last time I checked, it hasn't been done yet. Everybody knows it. So somehow eventually it will be done. It's not part of what we're doing here. But at the appropriate time, we will import, we buy the computer system and the program to import that information into our system. What that does is, when there is an alarm system, when you need to, let's say you given the responsibility of tracking the Honorable Minister of Defense, making sure he's safe, or the President, making sure he's safe, and he starts going where it's supposed to go. You get on your console and you track it. Click on the map and it shows you where he is. Pull up the map of Abuja, wherever it is, Lagos, wherever it may be. Explode it and watch on the big screen. Something happens, irregular pattern of movement, and you go to that shop. Mentioned earlier that we've got an internet platform which is same as email. And so they watch whatever it is from whatever it may be. as an example of remote viewing. I have a friend of mine, I'm not partner, MOD, Army Headquarters. Maybe I didn't mean to discriminate. And there's a bunch of cameras at divisional HQ, maybe Kaduna or Lagos, just wherever maybe. Several other bunch of cameras at the brigade headquarters somewhere. There are several, I think, 15 brigade headquarters, I think, or more, probably more. And another group of cameras at the battalion level, armory, things like that, right? And supporting logistics. It's all the system. It's all dead work. A wide area network that can be easily expanded on. And you can sit here and watch whatever it is you want to watch, if you have the talent to do so. What about partners? So it looks nice, so I thought I'd put it up here also. I'm placed in Los Angeles, so naturally put Los Angeles in. Cameras, speakers, audio. Let me zoom in on the audio. I've talked about the saying here and saying things. It's very easy to see, and that is very easy to see things. Another unique aspect of this system is that you can not only see things that are far away, you can talk to somebody at the same time that you're monitoring. There's the dedicated voice channel in this system that you can actually talk. And I don't need to overemphasize the importance of that, because it's of no use if you can see movement or things happening, or there's a fire about to start or something, if you cannot talk to somebody. Yeah. And video capture. This technology has expanded quite a lot recently. It's still expanding. Before, we used to have, as an explanation, we used to have this year, put a tape in, put a tape out. Another tape in, one tape out. Okay. Then that changed. We now went to hard drive. Then we went to DVD. Video series. Then we went to DVD. DVD has 4 gig per disc. Then it kept expanding. Now, you can either have an array, or even have a new improved DVD that go to 8 or 16 gig per. And this, you can put a lot of information on video information on a 16 gig DVD. And then you have a carousel. Carousel is something you go to like a jukebox. Have 100 or 200 systems. This in one system. So you can imagine tons and tons of terabytes recording capability. And of course you can access all these systems from any number of places. Okay. This is an example of the remote video control center I was talking about. You can have an array of whatever you see here. You can see on the wall monitor, you can see in your car, or in your airplane, on your private desktop, or on your PDA. It is programmed to transmit all this information to whatever video source that's at your disposal. Just mentioned this not long ago. But having clear communication from headquarters to even the smallest logistics elements in the past, and we discussed this earlier. Now, how do we extract this connectivity for the money? I mean, if we had unlimited money, I would run gigabit Ethernet from one end of the country to the other. They cost money. I could run fiber from one remote place to the other. They also cost money. So the whole idea is to try to integrate what you have with what is new. And if possible, where possible, even use NITEL landlines or NITEL infrastructure. Now, let me try to elaborate on what VPN is. It's basically simply a virtual private network. That is, when you pick up your phone to make a call, your call gets routed any number of places to end up where the call is. With a VPN, it's like having a private line from one end of your area of interest to the other end of your area of interest, primarily through software. So it's like running a tunnel from your house to that's your area of interest. And you can do that. I'm not sure how much NITEL is into this, but it's not the lack of capability, probably it's the lack of knowledge. And you can work with it. You can do VPN over this app. And I know you're coming into some this app. We will have to. We can integrate our system into that, take advantage of it. It's necessary to do that because video takes up a lot of bandwidth. So we have to use whatever you have on ground and integrate whatever is coming in also. But we have to work that out together when the time comes. The easiest thing to have, the most trouble-free thing to have is a dedicated radio link. But over long distances, you probably don't have the money for it. If you have the money for it, you invest into it. That's almost virtually unlimited bandwidth for what you need to do. And bandwidth is very important. So as I said, our strategy will be to integrate or augment the existing infrastructure to get the best out of it. Network security. Mentioned before that it's very important. It doesn't do you any good if you have an elaborate, just knock yourself out system. If somebody else can access that system, either to mess up your files or shut you down, doesn't do good. Fortunately, even the most simple encryption practice goes a long way. Because a lot of people don't want to spend the time to try to break the system. And firewalls, all of you have computers, so go buy firewall software. But that's not what I'm talking about. You can make your own firewall for a simple system like to be able to control just another. Just get a computer, cheap computer, $400, load the firewall software in it, and separate it from your main network. So anybody tries to come and get stuck there, they can't detect the address of anything behind that particular computer. You say it's a cheap way of doing it. It's also very effective. For a complicated system like this, it takes a lot more work, but the principle is the same. Transmission. Basically what it does is scrambles what goes out and scrambles what comes in. So you want to talk to somebody, scramble the outgoing message, the person also with the system that can provide. He scrambles it, and only you and him can hear. A lot of people use that, but for protective services like the military, it's extremely important. Extremely important. Because you don't want somebody to know that your minister is going to Maitara at so and so time. Might not be known. You really don't want that. Or that the president is going to travel to somewhere at this point at so much time in a car that looks like this. And what is security detail about? You don't want somebody to know that. They're very effective encryption systems for that. and some of them attach themselves to your cell phone or your landline or even your satellite phone for long distance communication. We spend about 1 minute to discuss this. Just bear with me. I always feel it helps if you have some degree of understanding what goes. Very few audio communication, voice, for instance, goes over lines in Nigeria yet, and even in Nigeria it's going away. A lot of the things are broken down into packets and sent over the internet, reassembled. And this is a graphic demonstration of what happens. Okay? This is transmission control protocol, which breaks the message up into packets and reassembles them at the end. There you go. Okay. And over the internet, it just goes. One bit of the message can travel to somewhere else, over different networks, different systems. But somehow, they end up where they're supposed to go to. At that point, they are reassembled. And that's how information gets transmitted. To encrypt, a scramble is not such a big thing. You put a marker on here, scrambles, and it's very difficult for somebody to encrypt, to intercept encrypted IP messages. Okay, let's move on. Let's discuss some of the applications. There is perimeter protection, like your cantonments or reservations, just protecting the whole facility and the contents in it, whether it be armory, houses, outer perimeter fences, all these things. Then, video surveillance, protective surveillance of your physical building here, and the service headquarters. Again, the same platform infrastructure I was talking about provides protective surveillance and secure communication for your senior civilian and military personnel. The ability to see all things, always, all the time. There's no limit to what you can, to the application you can use it for. Mentions Central Network Operations Center and earlier, and secure communication with externally deployed command. Again, the same encryption that you can use to talk locally, you can also use to talk to command that's been sent overseas. First protection, and deal that first. What's involved here is a network of intrusion centers and video and thermal imaging cameras to provide protective surveillance for military facilities and cantonments. Now, thermal imaging is very important at night. Our cameras can see at night. I can see through vegetation. Because you're not using light beam, you're using infrared and ability to see the heat that's being given out by the body, and it traps them. And all these facilities, whether buildings or stations, whatever, are linked in a wide area network, monitored locally from anywhere. Could be here in Abuja. While putting this together, one of the staff mentioned something that happened. Was it last year?
Yes,
The Lagos canton. Huge explosion. What would have happened here? Because nothing exploded unless it was sabotage. If it was sabotage, we have known somebody's playing the system and about to do some mischief. See if I can apprehend it. But what I think probably happened is that you have these old shells just lying around there. and they just exploded by themselves. Let's assume that happened. That happened. You mentioned sensors earlier. There's no limit to the number of sensors you can integrate into the system. And nothing explodes without giving out fumes. And ordnance has specific chemical formula that can be identified when they're degraded and they give out these fumes. So, and they just don't happen overnight. It takes time. So while this is happening, the level goes up. You see, so wait. This, we are detecting this group of ordnance are getting, or they're about to disintegrate. For whatever reason, but there's an alarm. And you go there and monitor and extract it. And you're avoiding the catastrophe. It's not to talk about the fire, once the fire itself has broken up, that's the problem. So, in the space of time, this is somewhat busy, but for the soldiers, you're very familiar with it, so I'm not going to debate it. Different thermal imaging cameras that operate in total darkness. And thermal images that can resolve a person about a mile away. And what I did not add here is biometrics, passive biometric sensors. I didn't put it here. The ability to resolve faces, even if they are partially covered. Integrated in. Some of those that we mentioned earlier, the applications, where you track the civilian or military personnel that's your responsibility to protect. And what happens, not only are you tracking on the screen, but should something happen, there is an application here. Oh, by the way, I said, to show the scale at this is coming. This is another application which is video surveillance for headquarters and ship house. Another application for protecting the city, keeping track of what happens, who comes in, who comes out of the city, what machinery they're coming in, who are they, and so on. All I mentioned earlier, of course, is secure telephone fast communication between HQ and soldiers deployed in foreign countries. Congo, Liberia, have that capability. Force protection. This is a case in which okay, you send the soldiers, you just refer to soldiers, people that the people you protect. But they go out and you can't visually see them and they get hurt. The thing is, when they're behind buildings, like in an urban area, or over the horizon, and what they see is they got hurt. The sensors tell you this guy is immobile, or his heartbeat is fluctuating, or probably, unfortunately, is seriously hurt. From where you are, from your command center, from out in the field, you see, you know exactly what's going on, and make a decision about it. There's a wide range, frequency range. I don't want to dwell on that. This is one that's particularly exciting to me. And it's purely a function of the frequency used. Now, if you have your radio, this is the FM frequency range. And in this range, the transmission essentially goes through walls, around corners, over the globe. It doesn't matter. It gives you the capability of seeing what you normally do not see. The added advantage to this is the low power consumption. Because you don't have to worry about battery changes or any of those things, or charging the systems when you're ignition. 70 milliwatts is very low power. And you do it for hundreds of hours. The system has lots of advantages, but I'm not going to go very much into it. We saw that it was miniaturized when you compare it to penny size, and then built-in microphone, video camera, and loudspeaker. Even though they're this small, they have the full functionality of something this big or more. And two-way audio PTT is push to talk. Okay. GPS is global position system. You always know where they are. Even if they can't tell you where they are. And you discuss area like you didn't study. The person is supposed to protect. Probably they can't tell you where they are, they're in a hurry. Can't you see? You know exactly the exact location that they are. Messages. We've talked about vital sign telemetry. If somebody gets knocked down, shot, or whatever, I can't move, you know. The information is sent to you. And of course, with this many available channels, it's very difficult, even without the encryption, for somebody to track what you say. Finally, wireless DVR, which is digital video recording. You constantly record this. Again, it's very small. You have 160 hours at 80 gigabyte of it. 80 gigabyte of data. And we're getting to the end of our presentation. Since very appropriate, we mentioned at the Central Monitoring Center, Operation Center, it's a Walmart. We saw earlier the array of screens. And I said you could have a Walmart, or both. Advantage of the Walmart is, you see, I'm going to go to see the map of Nigeria. I see there's something going on, I click and explode that particular place that I clicked. And the map of that location comes up. And you could track your target. That's basically it. Earlier on I said that we don't hope and nobody expects all this to be done at once. And I'm sure you, having listened to this and what's available to you, you realize it helps you do your job that much better. But also realize that it's not going to cost money. So you can decide with us, you can sit down and say, we want to face this thing at this rate because of where the geographic constraints. Once this thing starts, you know your various defense services better than I do. So some of you guys be given us assignments from the beginning to work with us on the system. The best way to do it. Let them just like turnkey systems when nobody knows how to do for this. Because foreigners are not going to be there all the time. It's you. You're going to be running the system. There is any number of applications that can use that will be based on the infrastructure we've discussed. The important thing is that you understand and be aware of the power of this tool, the system, at your disposal. Musician. There will be no musicians.
System. Capture the system. Okay, sorry.
And this is our last slide. I'm very passionate about training and maintenance because that's the bane of Nigeria. I expect those who will be assigned to this project, if God willing, and we have to start in our pilot, will receive extensive training here and in the US. And of course, everything requires maintenance. A word of citizens. Thank you very much.
This has been a wonderful, wonderful way of telling us what we can do. It looks limitless, and I'm sure that our officers will have lots of questions for you. One thing though I'm going to do, which I failed to do at the beginning, was to introduce or have people here, the officers here, introduce themselves so you know what services they represent. And because I believe your demo is not going to end here, they're going to ask lots of questions. In fact, we're going to ask you whether you can trace some of our missing vessels somewhere. Apologies to the Navy. And other things. I have found this very, very interesting. But first things first, I'm going to ask our officers to introduce themselves. And then we'll take a couple of questions, including the cost of this entire program. We'll also know or be able to find out whether we could have this here, because you said something like you are going to be able to trace all things at all times and everywhere. That sounds quite profound. I was saying to myself, yeah, here comes a soothsayer. It looks like nobody's going to be hidden anywhere. How much of my privacy is going to be invaded? I'm beginning to wonder. So, I can't hide. There's no hiding place. So, will you tell us all about that? But before we start, I'm going to ask the officers to my left to introduce themselves so we know what services they represent.
The Color Policy Army Headquarters.
I'm Wing Commander Sojiba Deroche, S1 Communications Headquarters.
I'm Commander S.C. John. I'm the SO1 Communication Naval Headquarters. I am Lieutenant Colonel Shafa, GSO1 Int and Security Army Headquarters.
Wing Commander Lawan, SO1 Air Force
For the Search Statistics. I'm Commander M.A. Ayegwa, the Assistant Director of Frequency Management, Defense Headquarters.
I'm Colonel O.T. Osazwa, Assistant Director, Information Technology, Defense Headquarters.
Alhat Mohammed Kamal, Planning and Research and Statistics Department, Ministry of Defense.
Guru Viju, Planning Research and Statistics Department, Ministry of Defense.
And I'm Suleiman, Deputy Director, Planning Research Statistics.
Introduce themselves in the process of introducing, getting to know each other.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Group Captain Kushalu, the Director of the Police Engineering. HQ now.
Thank you very much. Dr. Ibok, I'm going to ask you just one quick question before the floor is thrown open. Where has the system been applied?
The force protection. Slide satellites that are put out there is primarily used by defense in the US. The surveillance system has a much broader appeal and has been used since 9/11 for infrastructure protection. Broadly used infrastructure protection, and also by what we call army reservations, what you call cantonments, to protect the perimeter and the services. So it's been broadly used.
From officers to the services. And that's where we know whether Dr. Ibok has been able to convince you on the way forward. Thank you.
My main problem, the way I see it, is that it seems what you have just spoken to us about appears like terminal equipment in our environment here. Because if you don't have that backbone, that communication backbone on which your equipment will work as a network, I think we have problems, deriving the maximum benefit, available on your system. So my question is, as a Nigerian, and being aware of how our communication setup is, vis-a-vis, right now we can say NITEL is the major, maybe, service provider. Do you think this system will work here in Nigeria? Thank you.
The system to work.
No, you do not. In one of the slides, you saw the options that I was. Okay. In one of the slides, you saw the options I was given. Because sometimes the service that NITEL provides does not extend, or probably not as stable as you would like to have. But I also know that they've spent a lot of money laying fiber, at least across the southwest, or across the south. So where there is fiber, you have cost savings there, because you have almost unlimited access to bandwidth. Where there is no fiber, and I'm not dwelling entirely on the service history of NITEL, because we will not rely on the service history of NITEL. All we ask them for will be access. They sell us access, and which is a lot cheaper than VSAT or any other alternative. And we set up our own VPN up to certain switches that we set up, and then take over from there. Ideally, if cost were not the issue, you would not need NITEL, not need anybody. It's that each camera, each system has its own IP address and transmits on the network itself. So you could actually set up your own, ideally, wireless network, and do independent of NITEL or any other telecoms company. It is purely a matter of cost. So when I say that we need NITEL, we need to buy, or in case Global completes fiber optic line, you need to buy access to it because it's cheaper than anything else, and then design our system that way.
That covers the military and maybe the security services with enough bandwidth, then your system will just be plugged into it. But as it is, without the strategic communication network, I think we may have problem with your system, because you just discover that it will be more of local area network application. The remote sensing, maximizing it, we might not have it. Definitely NITEL is more or less it's not reliable. It doesn't have enough transmitting capacity. We are going to be bogged down So we just need it, and we just have to start by thinking in terms of that backbone, the strategic communication.
As I said before, I mentioned Niger purely as a matter of cost. There's a company, very familiar, it's in charge of our oil here. That's the things we proposed to for the entire pipeline system. And Niger doesn't want to stop the pipeline system. The completely wireless system. Completely wireless. And as a you'll see a better one at the back with supplementary information. You can have 960 megabit per second. Pipe transmission capacity over several kilometers. Sometimes you can have a hub of up to 50 kilometers. So it really doesn't cost that much to go. I don't know exactly where all the facilities are. It doesn't really cost that much for you to go hub 50 kilometers, 50 kilometers, 50 kilometers. And it's your own system, it's your own private system. And they're really not that expensive. It's all in the design. And your baseline is coming in. When that can be used, we integrate the wireless into your baseline, in the design of the network. So don't let the limitations of Niger be even a concern at all in this matter.
This facility, judging by 9/11 incident in America where this component has been applied, how protected it is?
Physical protection is primarily a matter for the cameras. Okay. And there is less danger to the cameras in your application than there is in the pipeline application, because it's just that much less vandalism. And we discussed and addressed this at great length. So, on the physical security of the cameras themselves, if you go to where you have different types of cameras, there are covert cameras and they're bulletproof and weatherproof and all those things. So we thought this out quite a bit in the system, in the applications. Now, as for the cyber protection, there's been a lot of work, as I mentioned earlier, in securing the system. Fundamentally, with the encryption and the password protection report. But let me elaborate a little bit more on the password. When I talk about password, it seems like you have a password, you log on, and you type something into the system. That's not exactly for a system this complex. This is really not the way it works. You have dynamic password changes. So you give the key, and the key changes. The numbers change every 10, 15 seconds or so. So, and you have that key, and you know what the password is at that particular moment when you go through the initial access, and you enter the number, and you're in. So it's not like you write something down, you forget, and you leave it around, somebody else picks it, because it's completely useless to somebody else.
Address the issue of this your equipment, how it can be used by the Navy to track our ships anywhere in the world.
If they are within Nigeria, close to
Nigeria.
Nigeria.
US to Nigeria.
Okay, US to Nigeria, you have to transmit the information via satellite. And within Nigeria, close to Nigeria, several hundred miles within Nigeria, nautical mile within Nigeria, you can track it. It's just like tracking stuff on ground here, because it transmits information. In March, when I was at DHQ, one of the things we talked about, this is for the pipeline, it's not for military applications, was that you can transmit, this video feed goes to helicopters, goes to ships, patrol boats, any of these things. So you always know at all times where your vessels are, what's going on with them if you want to. You might not want to, but if you want to, you have that capability too. And one camera, as I mentioned before, it only takes like one camera per ship, and the sensors are there. So camera and sensors give you all the capability. ability you need to track.
Could we take one more question, please? Please, yes.
Commander Yuga, actually I was going to ask you, but he's talked about the other one, and that is about the ships, how you can track them. In talking about the cameras, I don't know, can they be mounted on board our airpieces, like the aircraft? You know, maybe when you're talking about information gathering, can you mount them? And how effective would they be?
You mean to mount them on the aircraft and take pictures?
Yes, on the aircraft, and maybe for information gathering.
Okay. That's a different application. But they're very fast cameras. I mean, they could go 100-something degrees in 1 second, back and forth. You could apply them there. Depends. I'm more used to using helicopters and planes as video feeds to monitor certain targets. But I see no reason why you could not apply them as you would any other camera on your plane or helicopters.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Dr. Ibo. I would like us to consider possibility, since we are talking of new technology, possibility of using transmission lines, power transmission lines, as telecommunication medium. And of course, that would definitely reduce cost for us to build a separate telecommunication backbone. How about that?
There are always innovations going on, and recently, this is a very recent thing we talked about. The ability to use your power lines as telecom, and also in your own buildings, put some contraption up, and then you go on the internet using the electrical power that's in the building. It's just becoming very commercial. It's just becoming commercialized in the US, and there will be improvements going forward. But it's never been tested on such a large scale. Theoretically, you could do it, but it's not something, since it's not been tested out sufficiently at this point.
I think we should start looking at it, because I'm aware that NEPA is already thinking along that line, setting up their own telecommunication company using their infrastructure. Of course, it covers everywhere in the country. And setting up the system is going to be cheaper, much cheaper than what we have today.
What NEPA was doing, quite familiar with that also. NEPA was looking at two alternatives to run, which is the way the rest of the world does. That's why when we talk about Globacom running their own fiber optic cable by digging it down and laying the cable in there, as I told somebody yesterday, it could very well be a tremendous, colossal waste of money. Okay. But what the rest of the world does is they run the fiber optic cable on high tension transmission towers. It's a lot easier to do that. It's cheaper. You go 20 kilometers in one day using helicopters, and it's a lot better that way. So what NEPA was doing, they were going to example, I'm sure you also indicated this several months back. They got into a partnership with ESCOM of South Africa to lay this cables along, give them the concession to do it, and they form a partnership. So they were really not going to use the electrical wire. They were going to use fiber optic and use the high tension towers to run. Okay.
Well, I think we have had a field day here, listening to all these new technologies, and I am sure this is not going to be the end. It is just the beginning. The question I'm going to ask Dr. Ibok is, do we need to have a license to have the system operative here? Any kind of license at all?
Yes, because of the improvements in technology, although it will make somebody squeamish to think about it, but you could use unlicensed frequency. The amount of modulation changes that is going on, improvement is going on in the industry. You can actually use unlicensed frequency and then set up your own encryption and password protection system. It's just as good as using a frequency, a licensed frequency. I use licensed frequency project. But let's assume that you're going to use a licensed frequency. NCC can give you a license for that. If you want to use specific
operator from the National Frequency Management Center, and once it's not being, it will be given.
Okay, good. Well, that solves our problems. Halfway, it's good to know that we don't have to go through NCC or anybody. We can always have our own license and use it. Now, I'm going to ask Mr. Oji to thank you. We will be in touch with you, and I am sure the services are very interested in this new system. I have taken the liberty not to ask about the budgetary implications. We will talk about this, will be a subject for another time. Dr. Ibok would like to know how long you're going to be here, when you're going to go back, and how we can maintain our communication with you, because as you can see, this is just the beginning. It's a whole system, and if we're going to have an integrated system, we need to be talking to all the services, including the DHQ and here, and we're also going to be talking to you at length as to how we can interface with the systems we are thinking about. There are too many things on the ground, and what we don't want to do is to dissipate our efforts doing this and doing that. So if we must try this system, we must indeed find out from you how we can interface seamlessly with what we have or what we are planning to have in the future. Okay, but quite honestly, I found this very, very interesting. I mean, technology is limitless. You don't know how far you can go. In fact, the sky is your limit. I'll call on my assistant director to thank you and to find out from you how we can keep in touch with you. And I do hope other members have enjoyed this demo. It's been a time well spent. Mr. Raji.
Thank you very much.
The Director of Planning, Research and Statistics, the senior military officers here present, Travis Telecommunication Limited. I thank the director so much for giving me this opportunity to do the simplest ceremony. You know, in any gathering, to thank people enjoy the simplest. I was in the one meeting when the permanent secretary, I think Dr. Ojoke, was telling us about thanking people what it means. He said there are certain jobs when you perform it, they just say thank you. And some of them, they will say thank you very much. And when you have performed very well, they say thank you very much indeed. So I use this opportunity to tell Dr. Ibok, thank you very much indeed. I also thank our service personnel for making it possible to be here. In fact, they were here before other civilians. If I remember very well, I saw the colonel. He was here, I think that was around after 10. So I was telling you when Dr. Ibok came, I said this is a military dispatch. So when next time you want to do the demo here, you have to be here. Even by 9 o'clock when we started by 11. So, just as the director said, I'm using this opportunity to thank everybody who is here present, especially people from Planning, Research and Statistics.
The other way that, if I don't thank my director, who is the chairperson of this occasion, that means I'm making a mistake. So I use the opportunity to thank her last. She had been in about 3 or 4 meetings this month. I remember we started the meeting in your office. We moved up to the Minister of State. From Minister of State, we went to the Permanent Secretary's conference room and asked us to stay here and wait for him for 30 minutes. I didn't want to tell them. After some time, I told them that the director would be here in 10 minutes. So 10 minutes passed again, so we're still talking, lo and behold, you came in. So, ma, we thank you so much. And I believe with this demo, which is very interesting, when we put up our reports, maybe you'll be able to convince the authority that this is a very good idea, what we should have. Because I remember one time again when we were representing these people, the Minister of Defense in the Science and Tech, this issue of surveillance also came up again. And I remember Group of the Chedu, when he was shouting on the professor, he said, I hope something does not happen. If something happens, I'm going to grab you, the professor, you become a soldier, so that you go to the war front, so that you can understand what we're talking about. So this surveillance is very, very important. And also use this opportunity that is to also inform us, just as the director said, the Ministry of Defense has a plan of deploying VSAT communication. All the VSAT used during Koja games and Chogon, the Ministry of Defense is in the process of taking them over. We have already done the event. So he is also telling us that there will be a way of integrating this system into this one seamlessly, which means we already gone somewhere. So, ma, well, thank you, and thank you.
We'll be in touch with you. Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to address.
My brother, thank you. So we are here. And I've not seen
finally.
You. Where does it? Thank you. Thanks. Okay, you want for... yes, I will make available a copy because we were waiting for their contact. You know the one for the combine it with the one for the group. So we are going to make it available. Okay, sir. You know, we got input from you people. You know, when we are going to put the exactly. Deployment. So it was also there.
Okay, what's happening? Have it. 1, 2.
Where is another?
What are supposed to do?
Carry go. enjoy where you are. Not where you